I recently finished reading Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, and a big takeaway for me was how the main character creates a whole new belief system in order to make sense of the crumbling apocalyptic world around her. And this made me think of Afro-pessimism and why I appreciate it so much as a framework, because it helps me understand my subjugation as a Black woman in the world. Specifically, when you think about what is happening in Congo and Sudan and Haiti and Palestine and other parts of the world, but how easy it is to fall into despair and hopelessness and helplessness and feel like you lack a sense of agency to enact any changes around you. And then I contrast that with Afrofuturism and Octavia Butler specifically, who is considered an Afrofuturist, and how she uses Parable of the Sower to remind us the importance of faith, of belief, of hope, of imagining a world beyond your current material conditions. And that's very valuable to me, because then it makes me think of our ancestors, specifically the ancestors of enslaved people and colonized people, and how they existed through some of the most horrific, unimaginable violence that we will never even be able to fathom. But despite their state of powerlessness, despite their state of subjugation, despite being completely stripped of their agency and humanity, they still found the belief, the hope, the willpower to choose to wake up every day and fight and resist against these systems and hope for a better world than what they were currently experiencing. And understanding that the fact that we even exist as their descendants is because they chose to resist and push back and not accept the status quo. And that's very valuable to me, because it echoes back to the main theme of the book, which is how the main character uses Earthseed, this religion she creates, to emphasize that God is change. And if God is change, then we are change, and we are more than capable of adapting to even some of the most horrific human conditions. And the fact that our ancestors, despite their limited agency, their limited capacity, still tapped into the agency that they had within themselves to resist and to push back. So it's helpful because it's helping me find the balance and duality between Afro-pessimism and Afrofuturism, and understanding that they both hold truths, because one helps me understand my positionality and know what I'm up against, and then the other one gives me a renewed sense of hope that I have the power and agency to create the change that I want to see in the world. And really emphasizing the importance of understanding that faith without action is dead, and God helps those who help themselves. So that is something the book emphasizes a lot, is that we are our own saviors, and that we cannot just rely solely on a higher power, the universe, God, a divine being, to come and rescue us from these man-made problems. That we are capable of creating man-made solutions. Even though we were not the ones who created the systems, we have to be the ones to abolish it, because freedom is not going to be handed to us on a silver platter. As we saw with our ancestors, they had to actively fight back and demand liberation. So I think it's really important to think about these things right now, especially given the state of the world, and especially as somebody who feels like there's not much that I can do. I'm also subjugated and powerless and marginalized. So what is my capacity for change? But remembering an important quote from the book, which is something along the lines of, the destiny of Earthseed is to take root among the stars. And that makes me think of our capacity as humanity to create paradise on this planet, because we have the capacity to do that, even though we are not the ones who created these systems. So I think the conclusion of my reflections is basically how, despite the limited power that my positionality affords me, my hope lies in the fact that I can dictate what I accept as my reality. and not to limit myself in the agency that I have, because it's an insult to myself and my ancestors to say that I don't have the power, no matter how small the change may be, no matter how minuscule it may seem, even if it's not on a global scale, as long as you're actively working towards creating changes that better the material conditions of people around you, especially the most marginalized, then that is valuable, and that we all have the agency to do that. So I highly, highly recommend the book, not only because it's aligned with the current political climate of what we're going through, but especially if you're somebody who's just very hopeless and feels helpless about the state of the world and don't know where to begin, because I feel like the book offers really helpful, tangible action items through the character and exemplifies how we are also able to do the same in our current lived reality. But I look forward to reading the second book in the series, The Parable of the Talents, and I really hope I gain even more insight on how to better accept the current state of the world in order to now be mobilized towards working towards changes that I want to see. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk, and I hope that you gain some insight in my reflections.